3, that is your certificate. So this is actually an important concept with respect to your exam as well as your internals, that is X.509 certificate. So what are these X.509 certificates? Basically, these are the standardized certificates which are actually used in public keys. Okay, so we studied about distribution of public keys with the help of certificates. So this is that concept. These kind of certificates are being considered for your public key transformation or exchanging of your public keys. So what we'll see what are these certificates. Do concentrate. This is one of the important concepts. Part of what does this X509 certificate is? It is a part of the series of recommendations that defines a directory services. As I told, with respect to your public key exchange as well as distributions, we have 4 different schemes. One of the scheme is your certificate. So this basically defines a standard with respect to your public key distribution. So I can say X509 is one of the standardized directory with the help of which you can make a key as public there. Then, what does this directory consist of? This directory is in effect a server or distributed set of servers that maintains a database of information about users. So what does this X509 certificates consist of? They are actually collection of servers as well as databases, which basically consist of the information of the users. So all the information of user A as well as user B will be stored in these kind of certificates, which intently have some servers to manipulate that particular data. So how you can define X509 certificate is, it basically defines a framework for the provision of authentication services by the X500 directory to its users. Basically, this standardized certificates consist of a framework which basically has some authentication services with respect to its users. So what are those authentication services? When was such kind of frameworks invented? Basically, this framework was invented in 1988. Based on what kind of technique it was invented? Based on the use of public key cryptography and digital signatures. So we have 2 different inputs for X509 certificate. One is your public key cryptography as well as digital signatures. You should remember this keynote. So does not dictate the use of a specific algorithm but recommends RSA. So this X509 certificates does not actually assume some algorithms or techniques, but it will basically recommend to use one kind of technique, one kind of algorithm, that is your RSA algorithm. As I told, whatever the module we cover, that is the third module, basically compares itself with respect to your RSA algorithm. So you can see that is actually linked here. So it is recommending RSA part. Does not dictate a specific hash algorithm as well. So it is not giving you any idea of any algorithm. It is not specifying any algorithm, but instead it is giving you an suggestion to use RSA only, because as we all know, with respect to cryptography, a cryptographic algorithm, RSA stands highest in all the terms. Okay. Then each certificate contains the public key of a user and is signed with the private key of a trusted certification authority. So you can see here the users does not come into existence, but the authorities comes here. If the authorities is coming into existence, I can say that these are actually highly secure. The data is highly secured here. Each certificate contains the public key of a user. If the certificate has the public key of the user, it is actually signed by the authority, that is private key of the authority. So if I'm using a private key of someone, usually this data is actually checked, cross-verified. So you need not doubt on this data. If you are using these certificates, this data can be highly accessed and used. Then X509 defines alternative authentication protocols based on the use of public key certificates. Some with respect to X509 certificates, some protocols, some rules should be followed with the help of public key certificates. As I told, these certificates come into existence only when your public key concept comes there. So whenever public key concept comes there, you should remember some or the other way we are using X509 certificates. The adoption, the X509 certificates are adopting the protocols of your public key certificate. So that was simple about your certificate. The extended part of X509 certificate is been about certificates you will be studying in your module 4. Okay, this was simple about X509 certificates. So we'll see how the certificates is being used. So you can see with respect to your X509 certificates, basically, as I told, everything, whatever you do is kept as public here. So this is actually a public key I'm using for both encryption as well as decryption part. It is actually not suggesting any of the hash algorithm. So I'm just defining a simple term called as hash here, that is represented as H. So where this particular certificate works is, you can see a signed certificate is provided in between, with the help of which each data is being accessed here. From this data, from this block, that is with the help of signed certificate in this sense is not your hard copy certificate. It is actually one of the technique here which is specified as signed certificate. The input is given to all the algorithms, that is decryption as well as hash function. From this, I'm giving an input for the hash algorithm and getting the output as an encryption technique. So it is just a vice versa flow where you are using all encryption, decryption part with the help of keys by specifying some. It's up to the user what kind of hash algorithm you take is up to it. So what is the usage of such kind of blocks or such kind of techniques is basically you will be generating a public key certificate with the help of some certification techniques. Then comes the actual part of the certificate. Basically, how the certificates are generated and what and all certificates consist of. Basically, with respect to your cryptography. How certificates are created? They are created by a trusted certification authority which are specified by CA and have the following elements. That is, these certificates have some elements in it. How they are created? They are created by whom? By the CA, that is the certification authority. The certificates has following elements. One is the version, which basically specifies what type of certificates I'm using. That is, what version of certificate I'm using. Then the serial number. Serial number is actually given. If I'm using huge number of certificates, a serial number has been defined to it. Then signature algorithm identifier. So whatever the algorithm is being used by the certificate, one identification is being provided to it. So what is this identification? Identification basically specified what kind of signature is being used. Then who is issuing the certificate? Those issuer name should be provided. These elements should be present in it. Then period of validity, then subject name. So these are some of the except signature algorithm identifier. These are some of the normal. If you take your certificates also, these are the some of the points, elements which we'll have in this certificate. Then we have subjects public key information. So whatever the certificate is being indicated, so the information of that particular subject should be provided in the certificate. Then issuers UID, subjects UID, extensions, and most importantly, the signature should be provided in the certificate. So these are cryptographic certificates which are generated by CA, that is a certification authority given to any kind of keys, that is public key as well as private key. So this is one of the 5-marker question, that is what are the elements of certificates which are actually be defined by certification authorities. So you should remember all this. These are some of the elements of your certificates. Then this is actually the format how your certificates look like. So this is actually a 10-marker question with respect to this module. And the last concept, last PPT of your module, I'll just explain this and I'll stop. So we'll see. So this is actually with respect to, if I guess, this might be asked for 12 marks actually, maximum marks. Okay. So this is just defining what is the format of your certificate. So you can see these are all the terms which we saw in the elements of your certificates. So those are actually listed here. So how these are intended. So this is the format of X509 certificate. So you should remember what and all comes under which. So you should actually follow the flow. First comes the version, serial number, signature algorithm identifier, issuer name, validity, subject name, subject public keys information, so and so. Finally, it should start with the version. It should basically ends with your signature. Your signature in the sense, the certificate signature. So, its signature algorithm identifier, there are two different parts. One is your algorithm as well as parameters. So, basically, with respect to algorithm, what basically algorithm has? Algorithm consists of which kind of technique you are using. Parameters in the sense, what are the parameters you are passing for the particular algorithm? So, these are the two parts. Then, period of validity. What should the period of validity actually consist of? It will when it will expire, until when you can use it. So that is not before and not after. That is specifying the usage of that particular certificate. Then subjects public key information, algorithm parameters as well as key should be specified for the key information. Then coming on to the signature, you can see three different parts you should specify: algorithm, parameters as well as encrypted hash, which basically depends on what kind of version you are using. So this is basically how the X509 certificate looks like. So you should specify this with respect to the elements of X509 certificate. Then comes the another format. This is one initial default format. The second format is certificate revocation list. So this is actually another format with respect to X509 certificate. First, it basically consists of signature algorithm identifier, issuer name, then update date, next update date. It basically depends. These two depends on the period of validity itself. Then revoke certificate, then revoke certificate again, then again signature. So what happens if you are specifying the revoke certificate? Revoke certificate is nothing but if this certificate is expiry of the certificate is done now, so I just want to what I can say, renewal that certificate, you can use this format, that is this update date till next the update date. Then finally this part, the revoked certificate, consists of user certification serial number as well as the revocation date. So that is one just simple change between the initial format as well as your revocation list formats. So this is how your X509 certificate works as well as looks like. So in this module, we will see only the format of X509 certificates. Okay. So that was about X509 certificate format. So that was still about your module 3. Okay. So obtaining a certificate is actually just a simple part. Till X509 certificate format is there in your module 3. In module 4, I'll be starting with how to obtain a certificate. Basically, how you are obtaining a certificate. I'll just specify the general part. With the help of certification authority only, you'll be obtaining a certificate based on some terms, based on different criteria, that is criteria A as well as criteria B, that is user A as well as user B. Depending on those two terms only, I'll be obtaining a certificate.